Okay. Hello and welcome back to the Rebel Tribe. This is going to be the best show ever, I think, because we are having a real and extremely necessary conversation for every woman who has ever thought, what the heck has happened to my body? I know I ask that question like daily. My guest today is Claudine François, functional health expert and author of the powerful new book, Your Midlife Body Code: Decode Symptoms, Realign the Body, and Reclaim Control. This book is a lifeline. It's an absolute lifeline for women who are tired of being told everything looks fine when they know damn well it's not. Claudine doesn't just talk about midlife, she translates it. And today she's going to help us decode what our bodies have been trying to help tell us. So let's get into it because when you finish this conversation, you're just going to be like, okay, I need this book. So, Claudine, let's just get right into it. Okay.
Let's do it.
You open the book with a really strong line of you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're just missing the code. And I can't tell you how that hit with me. Not so much with me, but some things I've been through with some family members where they actually did tell them they were crazy.
Hmm.
What was the moment that made you realize women desperately needed to hear this?
What was the moment? It was more a series of moments because I work with women day in and day out, and I hear it over and over and over again where women are coming to me saying they've been dismissed by their doctors who don't believe that their symptoms are real or are dismissing their symptoms or are giving them some kind of band-aid thing, right? Like, oh, you're having brain fog and you feel a little off and maybe a little down. Let me give you an antidepressant, right? They're not actually looking deep into the symptoms. And um, so they're being dismissed, they're being ignored, and they don't trust their bodies anymore because their bodies are changing and they keep thinking, is my body broken? Why isn't it responding the way it used to? And so that series of or that combination of things that I see from my clients over and over and over again led me to see or realize that I need to write the answers down for everybody so that even the people who aren't working with me can get some kind of relief, can feel like they're not alone, can understand they're not crazy, right? Their body isn't broken. It's just communicating. And once they learn to decode what it's telling them, they can too realign their body, reclaim energy, focus, and vitality.
Well, I'm really glad you wrote it because, like I said, I have dealt with this personally on a different level, and I was angry. I was angry because I know my kids, I know my family, and I knew in my heart that she was right. There was something wrong, and for her to just be told, yeah, you have some, it's psychosomatic. I was furious. So you talk about corporate burnout and migraines and stubborn weight that won't move. When did you realize that the traditional advice, like eat less and work out more, is failing women?
Well, it started with my own story, right? So I was in corporate. I was a CFO in a large company, an international company, and I was having all of these symptoms, right? I was working out and I was what I thought was eating healthy, but yet I had the stubborn weight. I had chronic migraines. I was irritable. I was mean. Like people hated me. I was just terrible because my body was trying to protect me in the only ways it knew how, but I didn't understand what it was telling me. I just felt awful all the time and exhausted, even if I slept 8, 10 hours, it didn't matter. So going through that process myself, I eventually found functional medicine, and that's what helped. And then started to realize I'm not the only person going through this. I see woman after woman after woman just pushing through, trying to make it work, not understanding that these are all data points. Her body is giving her data and it wants her, these symptoms are data. And if she wants to address the root cause, she needs to listen to those symptoms as data and take action. But of course, she needs to understand what the data is telling her. It's just like, if you and I looked, or maybe not you, if I looked at a series of code on a computer, I would have no idea what it means. But if I had a decoder, if I had a person who understands how to read the code, then I would know what it's telling me. That's essentially what the book is. It's a decoder.
Sweet. And like I said, that book, I'm going to be reading it again because I think there's some things in there that pertain to me. You've dealt with it. My daughter's dealt with it. I've dealt with it. Why are so many of us in midlife being told, "Oh, your labs are normal," and we're falling apart? Why is this? What is the problem?
Problem is that in traditional medicine, they are not, it's two things. One, they're not taught to look at root causes, right? They are told to look at a symptom and prescribe something or do a surgery, right? Those are your two options. If you have X, Y, or Z problem, I can give you a pill or we can cut it out. So that's problem one. Problem two is that doctors are not trained to help women in midlife. Even OBGYNs, who you would think would be trained for all the whole, life cycle of a woman. No, they're really only trained to help a woman in her fertile years. But as we go through perimenopause and menopause, as our hormones start changing, which affect every cell of our body, the doctors are not equipped to understand and to recognize these symptoms as part of one big picture. And I guess there's also a third issue, which is that the doctors are very specialized now, right? So nobody's looking at a big picture. Even your general practitioner doesn't know enough about that whole system to be able to tell you, oh, well, those heart palpitations and your anxiety and your digestive issues, those are all part of your declining estrogen. They are not going to put that puzzle piece together, right? That is not their jam. They're going to send you to a cardiologist for your heart palpitations. They're going to send you to a GI doctor for your gut stuff. They're going to send you, they're going to send you to all the different specialists for all the different things, rather than recognizing that these are all part of a one whole systemic change that can be supported rather than prescribed.
You just said something earlier about how what's happening to us is it's not just random symptoms, it's data, it's signals. So what are some of the first signs that we often ignore?
Some of the first signs that women often ignore are things like fatigue, right? That's usually one of the first ones that women notice. Now, granted, every woman is different. Another woman might notice stubborn weight that's just all of a sudden popping out of nowhere, even though she hasn't changed the way she works out, hasn't changed what she's been eating. Just all of a sudden, she has this little extra love in the midsection, right? Um, so those are two common ones. The cold, what people would think of as menopause, like the hot flashes, the night sweats. Some people will have those too, but it's usually more like brain fog and digestion issues and sluggishness and irritability. It's just kind of this, and I think I list quite a few of them in the book, even like things like frozen shoulder or achy joints. I mean, there are just so many what we would think of as unusual symptoms of perimenopause, like not the usual ones people think of, that start to, like, basically our body's kind of like, here's a hint, here's another hint, here's another hint. Are you paying attention? And it keeps giving us these little signals, like you said, um, to try to get our attention. And usually by the time women come to me, they've had multiple signals and they're getting to the point where it's affecting their lives.
Well, you also describe midlife as a perfect storm of hormones, nervous system overload, blood sugar swings, gut issues. How do these all connect and basically create chaos in the body?
Well, part of it is our body is becoming less resilient because estrogen kind of covers up a lot of the problems. And so as our estrogen declines, we don't have that buffer anymore. So if you think of how it's easier to get stressed out or it's easier to get annoyed with people, you know how they say, like, when you're 40, like, you just stop caring what people have to say. You're like, you're over it. Put up with people's, I call it shizzle anymore. Um, and part of that is the declining estrogen because you don't have that cortisol buffer. So you're just like, no, I'm not dealing. I'm sorry. I'm not dealing with your stuff anymore. But that perfect storm, there, like I said earlier, there is an estrogen receptor in every system in your body. So it does affect digestion. It does affect detoxification. It does affect blood sugar. I mean, one of the reasons why women tend to become more insulin resistant, I mean, we'll have a lot of women who come with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or disorder, right? Or they're pre-diabetic. You see that because estrogen isn't propping them up anymore. And so we have to make changes to offset it.
You said in your book, and this kind of really hit me, you said you can't out supplement a frazzled nervous system. And it did. It really hit me because it reminded me of the thing that I read that really started me eating healthier was you can't outrun a bad diet. And you're basically the same thing. You cannot out supplement a frazzled nervous system. Can you explain why
Mm-hmm.
stress is such a driver of midlife symptoms?
I alluded to it a little bit, but one is that estrogen, right? It's not that cortisol buffer anymore. But also, as your progesterone goes down, progesterone's the calming hormone. So you also don't have the extra calming support. So we actually have to, this is what I love about midlife. We have to support ourselves more, right? So we have theoretically, if you think of it from, from the lifespan point of view, theoretically, we've had our children, right? We've raised them. Maybe they're out of the house, maybe they're in high school, who knows? But now, midlife, it's our time to focus back on us. And it's almost like our body is forcing us to do it, right? It's telling us, yeah, I'm not going to compensate for all of these things anymore. You actually have to learn how to take care of yourself. You have to learn how to give yourself downtime. You have to learn how to eat in ways that support your body, because I'm not going to compensate for that either. You have to find exercise that is um, rejuvenating rather than depleting, right? You have to have relationships that make you feel good. You have to create boundaries. So your body is almost forcing you. So it's like biological shift in midlife that is almost it's like it forces us to reclaim our power, right? We get to have the power back now if we listen and we understand what our body is trying to tell us.
Kind of sad that we have to kind of sad that we have to be reminded, but yes, after all those years of not taking care of ourselves, I love the fact that the body is going to get your attention one way or another.
Oh.
Let's talk about your method because it just kind of, when you told me the title of your book, it really intrigued me right off the bat because it's like, okay, there's a code that I'm missing. Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Okay. And you talk about three phases: decode, realign, and reclaim. What exactly do you mean by that? What are those?
Yeah, so these are basically developing a framework for understanding your body. And you typically go in order. So decoding is where you identify what's going on. You identify what is stressing out your body, whether for you it's mineral loss, gut issues, hormonal imbalances. We talked about blood sugar, liver. So it's figuring out where is your starting point, where are the biggest issues for you, and kind of working through those. Because once you understand what the issue is, then you can start to work on it, right? So realigning is where you do that. You start rebuilding those foundations. So making sure you're getting the right kind of food that nourishes your body rather than depletes it, that you're getting enough food. Most of the women I work with don't actually eat enough food. You know, they've been so used to starving themselves for years. Making sure you're getting enough minerals, because minerals are the building blocks and they're the transportation system for so many things in our body. Like nothing happens in the body without minerals. They're like little tugboats that get everybody where they need to go. Sleep. Sleep is critical. And sleep is one of those um it's one of those things where we know we need to get enough sleep. And sometimes we try to get enough sleep and we can't sleep. So I have a whole chapter in the book on sleep, as you know. So getting enough sleep, getting enough quality sleep is really important for our system. Making sure we feel safe in our bodies. So that's that nervous system regulation. So that's realign and reclaim, or excuse me, that's decode and realign. So decoding is understanding the symptoms. Realigning is rebuilding those foundations. And reclaim is basically bringing all that together and going one level up. And it has a lot of, it's partially like how to keep that going, like how to build the momentum and continue that practice, but also how to have the mindset of a person who takes care of herself. so that you can step back into energy, focus, confidence without restriction or burnout, which is what most of us have done for a long time, right? We've restricted ourselves and we've burned out by overdoing.
So what would be an example of a woman decoding her symptoms correctly? What exactly does that look like?
So, and there's two ways to do it, right? So I have a lot of bonus items on that come with the book where you have a lot of cheat sheets and workbooks that you can figure this out on your own based on your symptoms. Of course, you could also do it through functional medicine testing, which is faster, arguably, right? And you get raw data. Um, so decoding would be figuring out, okay, based on my symptoms, does it seem like I have not enough magnesium? Which, spoiler alert, everyone has not enough magnesium because it's one of the first minerals to go when we're stressed, and we're all stressed. But do you need to focus more on your blood sugar regulation? Like, I have a whole set of questions that you ask yourself, and based on what your answers are, you can start to focus on any specific area. So is it your blood sugar? Is it your gut? Is it your mineral balance? And then I give all sorts of tips on how you can start to rebuild that part. And so then the realigning is how you do it, right? So like I said, in the book and in the bonus documentation, if you have, for example, low sodium and potassium, you could do an adrenal cocktail, right? So it's cream of tartar, which is the potassium, Celtic salt, which is a highly mineralized sea salt, lemon juice, put that in water, that loves up your adrenals. So if you're a person who's been on high alert, in fight or flight for most of your life, your adrenals are probably shot. Having that adrenal cocktail once or twice a day, that can help love up your adrenals. So that's the realign. And in the reclaim, I also have supportive information in there to help you maintain, once you feel like you're at the point where you can maintain, how to maintain taking care of yourself in that way.
I have to laugh when you were talking about that because after the summit where you spoke, I went out and I bought all the stuff and I started drinking the water and the lemon. It was like, God, I can't drink this. And now I get up in the morning, I take the little boys out, and it's like the first thing I do is run in the house and grab my coconut water, lemon juice, and sea salt. And people that are visiting are watching me like sprinkling sea salt into my water. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, you need to drink this because I cannot. If I don't have that first thing in the morning, I know that I missed it. I can tell. I just don't feel the same. So she knows what she's talking about. Coconut water, squeeze a lemon, little pinch of sea salt, start drinking it, and my body just craves it in the morning. It's like, where's your
Mm,
water, girl? Where's your water?
that's awesome. Yeah. So you're using coconut water for the potassium, which is another great option.
So you talk a lot also in the reclaim phase, especially about rebuilding trust with your body. What
Mm-hmm.
is that? Why is that so important? What does that mean exactly? Don't we trust our
Well,
bodies?
no, most women don't. I mean, most of us have this real disconnect with our bodies because one, we were never really taught how our body works, especially after 40. I mean, the doctors don't even know. How are we supposed to know? And then we have all these midlife symptoms. So the fatigue, the brain fog, the stubborn weight, the insomnia, and understanding that they aren't random, that they're data, right? That's partially how we start to rebuild trust. But as I mentioned earlier, conventional medicine, like if we go to a doctor, they're going to treat those symptoms separately. So in functional medicine, we're looking at how everything comes together, those minerals, hormone, gut, nervous system, they all work together to help your body. And so I think for a lot of women, when you start to connect the dots, you can actually move from frustration to freedom because your symptoms aren't random. They're your body's data points, and you just need that decoder.
Well, I want to talk about some real problems that women have, and I'm going to be a little bit selfish. I'm going to talk about a couple that I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So, why are we gaining weight in midlife? I eat well now. I eat fairly, I would say I eat really well, to be honest, because I eat really clean. I eat very little processed, very little red meat. So I'm eating well. I work out. I'm not like running to the gym every day, but I walk. and I work out at home if I can't get outside. So why are we gaining weight? I've
Couple
stopped
reasons.
gaining since I've made the changes, but I'm not losing either. So
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, I haven't seen any testing from you, so I can't actually, I'm not going to diagnose anything, right? But we're going to talk
I
in
know.
general. Why are
Yep,
women
that's all. Yeah,
gaining
just general, it's
weight?
fine.
hmm So, two things that you mentioned. One is you're eating the same and you're working out, right? So, eating the same. Why would we gain weight if we're eating the same? Because our body's changes, our hormonal changes are making us less insulin resistant. So that basically means that you're going to eat let's say you have, I know you're not doing this. Let's just say you eat a donut. Okay. When you're 20, you eat that donut and your body's like, gone, used it. And you're 40 or 50 or older, you eat the donut and your body's like, oh, I am hanging on to that, girl. We are holding on to that just in case. And we're going to stick it right here in the middle because that's a really safe spot for it. We're going to put it right here. So the question is, how do you offset that? Right. And I'm going to jump to your second point before I answer that. Your second point is the working out. As we age, our testosterone also tends to diminish. And so we have to work harder to keep muscle. And muscle is one of those things that helps our metabolism. If we have more muscle, we're burning more calories. And so to not only keep muscle, but to gain muscle is critical as we age. And so instead of, let's say you were, I don't know about you specifically, but let's say someone was a cardio fiend, you know, in their 30s and 40s, well, 30s, they really need to switch to a more stringent um, strength training routine. So at least 2 times, preferably 3 times a week. And I put a caveat on here because some of the women who come to me are really depleted. They can't do that. So we have to build up their ability first. But if you're not depleted, you could do 2 to 3 times a week of strength training. That is going to actually help build your metabolism in and of itself. And then when it comes to the eating, we have to actually focus more on protein. And I say this as someone who has been very, I don't want to say critical, but maybe just not, there's been a lot of like, oh, we got to eat 3,000 grams of protein a day out there in the social media sphere, right? I'm not that person, but I do tell my women we need to have 20 to 30 grams of protein 3 times a day. So if you're getting between 80 to 100 of grams of protein in a day, you're stabilizing your blood sugar. And this is also important, eating at regular intervals throughout the day. So going like every 3 to 4 hours. If you go too long, I know a lot of people like to do fasting. Our body is already stressed out. It cannot handle the fasting right now, especially if you're going through, if you are feeling the effects of perimenopause and menopause, your body has too many stressors that can't handle long-term fasting. You can fast overnight for 12 to 14 hours, but then you need to eat and you need to start with a protein, right? So if we're eating a fruit, pair it with a protein. Like, so if you're having apple slices, have it with almond butter because that's fat and protein. If you're having, any kind of like berries are great because they have fiber in them too, but pair it with some kind of protein and or fat. And if we focus on that protein level, and if we focus on having non-simple carbs, right? So if the carbohydrates, we don't want to have bread and pasta. We want to have cauliflower and like fruit, actual, I call it real food, but vegetables because they also have the fiber. All of those will help stabilize our blood sugar and tell our body, oh, we don't have to hold on to that extra in the middle. We don't do that. We're not stressed out because of the blood sugar swings. Because blood sugar swings are another stressor on the body, and then it will hold on to the weight.
So the doctor that told me, and I'm not kidding, this is exactly what he told me. I don't need to do cardio or I don't need to do strength training because it's too hard on my joints at my age. I just need to focus on walking. Okay.
I don't know
Okay.
what he was referring to because I haven't seen any of your labs.
He didn't do any labs. He just said it's hard on our joints as we age because of the arthritis and stuff, So we should not
Yeah,
do strength training. We should just walk.
I see. And this is where he's not looking into, well, why would you have arthritis? And arthritis in my world is that your body is excreting calcium because of stress. And that's what we call a calcium shell. So that is something I would address first so that you don't have joint pain, so that you can do the workout. So, this whole, he's
I'm
not
just putting that
following.
out there. I'm just putting that out there for the ladies who think their doctors are, gospel truth, and they no, okay, they're not. So they're not. Pay attention to what Claudine is saying. They're not. Okay, so I have another question for you because this one's recent for me, and I'm sure I'm not the only. Well, I know I'm not because I hear women talk about it all the time on social media. What's the real story behind the 3 a.m. wake up call?
Oh, wow. You're actually hitting home. I have so many friends who have told me that they wake up at 3 a.m. That could be cortisol, right? If you are under chronic stress, that could wake you up at 3 a.m. Your body's just in fight or flight, and so it's waking up at 3 a.m. It could be blood sugar issues, right? If you go to bed and you're either hungry or you eat a lot of carbs before bed, when your body processes the carbs and or a drink like alcohol, right? Once your body processes it, your blood pressure drops and that stresses your body out and it wakes you up. It could also be parasites, right? If you have gut bugs, they tend to party at night. So those could be waking you up. So it's usually one of those three things, either your nervous system dysregulation, which is chronic stress, some kind of blood sugar issue, or gut bugs.
Thank you for that visual. The gut bugs having a midnight party.
They're like, woo, woo.
Oh dear. Okay, settle down, guys. Stop waking me up in the middle of the night. I don't like it.
Everybody chill.
You also mentioned liver overload as a cause of fatigue and bloat and all kinds of stuff, hormone chaos. What are some signs that your liver needs help?
Funny is that when I was writing the book, I did not plan on having a whole chapter for the liver. I actually just had like a little footnote in chapter two. It ended up being its own chapter. I started to realize I cannot explain the liver without going into into all the different things it does. Because the liver really is like Grand Central Station, right? It's like all these trains coming in and out, people going here and there, like so many things happen in the liver. So if you have food sensitivities, those are being put in a little histamine bubble by your immune system and shuttled off to the liver, and then your liver gets backed up. If you're taking any kind of over-the-counter medications or even prescribed medications, those have to be flushed out by the liver. If you have toxins, those have to be flushed out by the liver. And then your liver can't do other things. So, you know how I said that a lot of women in midlife tend to have higher cholesterol or like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? It's because your liver is also in charge of clearing out old cholesterol. So if it's too backed up because of any of those things, you can't clear out old cholesterol. And so it just recirculates. And so then you have high cholesterol, even for people who eat really, really healthy, don't eat a lot of meat, just random. They're like, why would I have high cholesterol? Your liver also converts the thyroid hormone from the inactive T4 to the active T3. And if it's backed up, it's not doing that. So there goes your metabolism. Another knock against our metabolism, like we needed more knocks in midlife, right? Um, so, and other people will have one thing I notice if people aren't hungry in the morning, it's usually because they have a liver issue. If people are really sensitive to smells, that's usually a liver issue because your body isn't able to detox, right? So there's so many things that go into the liver. It's like I said, it's a whole chapter. In the liver multiple times in the book just because it's so important. And I don't think a lot of people talk about how critical it is to have a well-functioning liver for your overall health.
So there's some simple fixes. I mean, it sounds like it's really important. So is there anything we can do?
Absolutely. So obviously we're going to talk about two different ends of the spectrum, right? There's the what can you do to help the liver now and versus why is the liver backed up in the first place, right? Oh, I didn't even mention estrogen dominance. If your liver is busy, then you become estrogen dominant because it can't clear out old estrogens. But what you can do to support your liver, there are really easy things like doing a castor oil pack, like doing a sauna blanket, or a sauna, um, taking Epsom salt baths, which are really great. Epsom salt baths are wonderful because it helps you absorb magnesium through your skin. It doesn't even have to go through your digestive system. And it forces you to relax for 20 minutes. And it's actually really great as a detoxifier, right? It's forcing you to sweat. So castor oil packs, Epsom salt baths, saunas or sauna blankets. You could do rebounding, which is like jumping up and down on a trampoline, which helps your lymph. Um, lemon water is great, like warm lemon water, especially in the morning. You could eat liver, right, or take liver supplements. Granted, I don't usually recommend that to someone until I've seen some of their lab results, because I don't want them to have too much copper. But so those are some of the things you can do to support your liver, right? You can take things like milk thistle, dandelion root tea. All of those things help. And then, of course, based on what we talked about a minute ago, getting to the root cause of why your liver is backed up to begin with. Because if you don't resolve the actual reason why your liver is backed up, you're not actually going to resolve the problem. You're just going to try to like catch up, you know? So figuring out, do you have food sensitivities? And if so, why? What things do you need to detox from certain things, heavy metals or plastic? A lot of people have like mold toxicity or plastic stuck in their body that they need to get out. So figuring out why your liver is backed up is important too.
Is okay, you said something that intrigued me. Is that possible? Because you hear so much about microplastics right now in everything basically, and that we all are now swimming in microplastics in our bloodstream. And I actually did have someone reach out to me the other day and want me to represent their newest product that is guaranteed to remove microplastics from your bloodstream. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so, but thanks for trying to scam me on that one. Is it possible to detox yourself from the swarm of microplastics we've consumed, apparently?
Are you asking me if it's possible to detox or if it's possible to be 100% plastic free?
I don't think you can possibly ever be 100% plastic free. They're everywhere.
Right, they are everywhere. So actually, I run a test for certain clients. It's called a total tox burden test, and it tells you, it has like green, orange, and red. Kind of like a stop sign. It tells you how much of certain things you have in you, and it lists all different kinds of plastics and other toxic elements. It also has heavy metals, and it has mold toxins, which are called mycotoxins. And it tells you on this like slider where you are. So people who are in the orange and the red, we work on, one, figuring out the source of those items, right? Because again, there's no point in detoxing if you're going to continually be exposed to it. But two, that on detoxing those items to the point where they're in the green. So they're not going to be gone 100%, but we need to reduce our exposure as much as possible and detox what we can.
Okay, so it is possible. I was just curious because it seemed to me that once you've got plastic in you, it's kind of there, and I don't know how you would possibly get rid of it. So interesting. Okay,
Well,
it
having a
is
well-functioning
possible.
liver helps. I mean, what is it they say? I read a study probably about a year ago that they found that the average human brain has like 1 to 2 pounds of plastic in it. It's something crazy.
That's awesome. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks for
So
that.
if it's in your brain, I don't know, but we'll try to get it out of all the other places.
I'm loving this conversation. Thank you. No.
You're welcome.
You're giving me all kinds of visuals, and I'm like, oh dear, dancing gut bugs and now a plastic brain. Oh, so what do we get wrong about gut health? Because I notice you do talk a lot about that too. And I've always been a big believer in that your gut is responsible for a good portion of your overall health in general. So what do we all get wrong about gut health?
Get wrong about it, that requires me to understand the world in a much, I think, probably deeper way than I do. But I can tell you what I see in my practice that people don't necessarily understand about gut health
Yeah,
is
that's
one,
probably it.
yeah, is one, how stress impacts your gut, right? I don't know about you, but growing up, especially when I was in corporate, I thought stress was a good thing. I was like, oh, if I'm stressed, I'm like doing things like this, I'm getting everything done. I'm like on it and not realizing the toll it was taking on my body. And one of the things that happens when you're stressed is that if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, when you're stressed, your body turns all functions off except for anything needed to get you to run away from the tiger, right? So it increases your blood sugar and your blood pressure. So you have the energy to just get away from the threat. But when that happens, you're turning off digestion, you're turning off hormone production, you're turning off immune function. Like you don't need those things if you're trying to run away from a tiger. So if you're chronically stressed, your digestion's off most of the time, which means you're not getting stomach acid, hydrochloric acid in your stomach to break down food. And if the stomach acid is not breaking down the food, then that undigested food is moving on to your small intestine. And then your immune system freaks out because it's like, well, what are these things? This isn't food. This is some big particle I need to deal with. And then you have this cascade of issues, which ends up with that histamine bubble, the liver getting impacted. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is when you have this happening, when you have any kind of gut degradation, it's impacting your brain. I don't know how many of your listeners have heard of the whole gut brain connection. That is a real thing. And 80 to 90% of your neurotransmitters, so think of serotonin, dopamine, even melatonin, those are made in your gut. So if your gut is not functioning well because it's dealing with all these other problems, your brain isn't doing well. So people who have anxiety, depression, insomnia, anything that has to do with the neurotransmitters, usually the root cause of that is in the gut. So that's why gut health is so super important, and not just dealing with what you see happening in the gut, but what is causing that to happen is so critical.
Okay, that makes sense. Midlife, I know too, when women think of midlife, we all think about the other big M connected to midlife, and that's menopause. That could be a whole episode by itself, I know. So, but what is one big myth about menopause that you wish women would stop believing?
Ooh, stop believing. Let me think. One big myth about menopause. I wish women would stop. Oh, that it just, what I wish they would not believe is that all of these symptoms are normal, right? So they have the hot flashes, they have the night sweats, they have the brain fog, they have the stinky armpits, they have like all of these weird, quote unquote, weird things that are happening in their body. And they think, well, it's just part of life. It's normal. I just have to deal with it. That is not true. It is common, but it is not normal. So you do not actually have to just deal with these symptoms and live with them. There are things you can do to address the reason why your body is having these symptoms so you can stop them and you can actually live your life again. You don't have to worry about all, where are you today when you're having your hot flash, or, why is your brain not functioning when you really need it to function during this big meeting that you have? There are things that you can do to support your body so you don't have the symptoms.
And that's why I asked you that question, because you and I have talked about this once before. And I remember it's like, where the heck were you when I was going through this? Because it was horrible. And I did. I was like, yeah, okay, well, it's menopause. What can I do? I did all the things that you read about in the books back then that were supposed to help and didn't really. So I was hoping that would be your answer, because I know there are women out there right now that are dealing with this, and it's horrible. There's no lying about it. Menopause is not fun, but it doesn't have to be awful. So thank you for giving me the absolute right answer that I wanted. Good job. Good job. So if there's a woman listening right now that's feeling exhausted or misunderstood, or just I hear that all the time. How are you doing? I don't feel good. Well, what's wrong? I don't know. I just don't feel good. I just don't feel like myself. Where does she start? Like today, what can she do?
You mean besides get the book?
Well, get the book first, and then what can she do?
Well, In the book, it'll help her figure out like what is the reason why she's having those issues. Like, is it her blood sugar? Is it her liver? Is it, certain hormone things she can do? So depending on what it is, will determine, and not only depending what the symptom is, but depending how her body responds to it, will be determine what she does. But really, for anyone, I would say there are a few things you can do right now. One, making sure you're eating. How's that? Making sure you're eating 3 good meals a day with 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, right? Start with your veggies, then your protein, and then any complex carbs. That helps stabilize your blood sugar. Number 2 is find a way to get a good night's sleep, right? And I talk about in the book if you're having trouble with that. Number 3 would be supporting your nervous system. Your nervous system is what causes that stress response. So whether it's taking a walk in nature, whether it's tapping, whether it's meditating, whether it's having a dance party in your living room, whatever works for you to help get yourself out of stress mode and into rest and digest mode, that is going to do a world of wonders for your body.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, because yes, they need to get the book, but even if is it available yet? Is it out there?
I don't know when
Can they
this is
buy it?
airing, but it will be available October 21st.
Okay, so for those of them that wanted to do something right now, you just gave them some good advice while they're waiting to go buy your book. You said in the book that personalization is freedom. What do you mean by that when it comes to your health? How do you personalize your health?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. Thank you for asking it. So I don't know about you, but I see a ton of generic advice on social media. And as a matter of fact, I have reached out to certain practitioners and asked them to explain what they mean when they say, oh, you should take this supplement and you should take this supplement and you should take this supplement. Not all of those supplements are going to be helpful for every person, and some of them are going to be harmful. So when you're watching somebody on social media say, oh, everybody needs to take X, Y, or Z supplement, you have to take that with a grain of salt. They don't know your personal history. They don't know what's going on in your body. They don't know what symptoms you're experiencing. And so personalization means you stop guessing, right? You start actually doing what your body needs, not what, this other person over here's body needs. And it allows you to actually address the challenges your body is facing rather than what I used to do, 20 years ago, which is like, oh, everybody said I should take vitamin D and vitamin E and this and that. And then I'm just taking a bunch of supplements, not really knowing what my body needs. So personalization is freedom because then you're doing exactly what your body needs and not just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
So, what do you want women to know about what's possible for them in midlife?
What is possible is to live a life free from symptoms where you have energy, where you have brain function, where you don't feel like your body is abandoning you or betraying you. It is possible to be the weight and the body composition you want. Everything is possible if you are listening to the symptoms and you are decoding the data.
So your book comes out on the 21st, but how can women start applying your midlife body code like right now? If they want to get started, they don't want to wait. Is there a way?
Well, they can definitely take it to heart, those 3 things we talked about earlier. I actually have a midlife body code quiz they can take to kind of figure out where they are, if they're in the decode, reclaim, or realign segment of that. So I'll give you that link that you can include. And that will basically inform, give them information so that they can then take the appropriate action.
And do you have some resources that you can offer for women who maybe need some help decoding their symptoms?
Absolutely. If they take that quiz, they'll be on my list, and I give resources twice a week. They can also go to my website, yourmidlifebodycode.com, and there are tons of resources there. So they are definitely welcome to check that out.
Okay. And is that where they connect with you and get the book too, or how do they
Yeah,
do that?
they absolutely can.
Okay, sweet. So midlifebodycode.com, book comes out on the 21st, and I will drop those links in the program notes. So sweet. So before we wrap up, I just thought of another question, and because somebody just popped into my head. So I have a friend who I have mentioned to a couple of times about their eating because I love her. I'm not trying to be, that person, but I love her and I watch her eat too much junk and not enough healthy food. And I've mentioned it a couple of times. And she's like, I'm 80 years old. There's nothing I'm going to do. I'd rather be happy in my old age and not have to do the extreme. And I don't think my diet's extreme. It's not, because I'm not that person, but that's kind of her thing, is I don't want to be all extreme like you are and give up my things that I love. Can we heal without going extreme or basically giving up joy? Okay.
I think part of that is like, what do people consider to be extreme? Like you said, you don't think your diet's extreme. She might think it's extreme. And the joy part of that has to do with, where are your neurotransmitters? If you think of dopamine, dopamine is our neurotransmitter that helps us experience joy. If our dopamine is so low that the only thing that brings us joy is ice cream, that's a problem, right? Because you can find joy in a lot of things. So the answer is, you can get better if you want to, and you can definitely follow my advice, but I'm not going to make anybody do it, right? So they can choose whether or not they want to do it. To me, it's not extreme. To me, it's a lifestyle. So if you need mindset work first, you probably want to work with someone specifically. You might not be able to do it on your own. You might want to work with a practitioner, whether it's me or someone else, who can help get you there and help you stair step it a little bit, because sometimes it's just a matter of doing things a little bit at a time, so it doesn't feel as overwhelming. If you just read the book and you're like, how am I going to put all this into practice at once? I do give tools to help you stair step it, but if you need more support, you might want to work with somebody.
Okay, sweet. So before we wrap up, what's one message that every woman in midlife needs to hear today?
I think what every woman in midlife needs to hear is, you're not crazy, you're not lazy or broken, but your body is trying to get your attention. That's what these symptoms are. Your body is trying to get your attention. And when you support your body instead of fighting it, it will respond. Because midlife can actually be a time of power, energy, and clarity, not decline, if you listen.
Well, this has been just a powerful conversation. I am so glad that you decided to come here and talk to me and basically break down what so many of us are experiencing, but we just haven't had the language for. I said I am no longer midlife technically. I tell everybody I am. 68's the new 30. But no, I have been there before there were people like you. I've been through this, and it's still hard sometimes to explain to the doctor what I'm feeling because they don't know. So your book, your body code it's a guide. It's a true absolute guide for women who are ready to just take back control of their health. And I know you and I have talked about that so many times, that women need to start standing up and taking control of their energy and their health. So to anyone listening, if your body's been sending you those signals and you're tired of being told everything's fine, go get this book, because it's going to help you understand what's really going on, and it's going to give you steps that you can actually use, which is also so critical, because how many books out there give you all this stuff and then you're like, what? So this book gives you steps that you can actually put into practice. I'm going to link everything in the show notes so you connect with Claudine, grab the book, dive a little bit deeper into her work, reach out if you think she can help you. Claudine, I thank you again for being here. This has been fabulous. And to our listeners, make sure you subscribe. Share this episode with a woman who needs it. There are women out there that really need this. And remember, you're not broken. You're not crazy. You're just getting started. So we'll see you next time.